In a village, there was a large hermitage where a renowned Buddhist monk named Gautam Buddha lived. One of his disciples in the hermitage had a habit of talking excessively. He would constantly chatter, and when he went to collect donations, he would bring back new stories from every house and share them with the other disciples in the ashram. He used to be quite shady, talking smack about one disciple to another, while pretending to be holier than thou in front of everyone else. He'd constantly pat himself on the back and try so hard to prove that he was the smartest and best among all the Buddhist monks. In his mind, he saw himself as superior to everyone else, bragging about coming from a wealthy family and how he could have had an easy life if he wanted. But instead, he claimed his sacrifice was greater than anyone else's because he left it all behind in search of truth and self-discovery. Quite the self-proclaimed hero, huh? One day, the Buddhist monk gathered all the ashram disciples and was like, "Listen up, peeps. It's resolution time. This is gonna make y'all stronger and more self-powered. Each one of you can make a resolution that suits your abilities. But here's the deal. If anyone breaks their resolution within a month, they gotta go back to their old boring routine." So all the disciples made their own resolutions based on their abilities and shared them with the Buddhist monk before leaving. However, there was one disciple who wanted to appear unique and superior. Instead of discussing it with others, he went straight to the Buddhist monk's cottage and boldly declared, "I don't want to settle for any small resolution. I want to take on a grand and magnificent resolution that matches my personality. Can you please guide me on what kind of resolution I should pursue?" Upon hearing this, the Buddhist monk gave a little smile and said, "Do you really think you'll be able to pull off the resolution I've given you? Let's be honest here, it's probably not something you can accomplish. That's why you're searching for a resolution in the first place." The disciple was all like, "Hey, Mr. Buddhist monk, I'm ready to take on any challenge you throw at me." So the monk was like, "All right then, how about you stay totally quiet for a whole month? Not even a peep." And the disciple was like, "Seriously? That's a piece of cake. Give me something more challenging that actually tests my skills." The monk replied, "Well, first prove yourself by completing this easy resolution." The dude followed the Buddhist monk's orders and immediately shut his trap. He walked out of the hut in silence, finding it surprisingly easy to keep his mouth shut. He managed to stay quiet for a whole day, but things started getting harder on the second day. The burden of not speaking weighed on his mind more and more. By the third day, he felt seriously weighed down, and by the fourth day, he was feeling pretty darn uncomfortable since all the other disciples in the ashram were chit-chatting away. He also had something to say to them, and really wanted to share his perspective. He tried to hold back, but his determination kept getting in the way. Days went by like this, and then the disciple fell sick. His head was pounding, and he had no appetite or thirst. All he wanted was to speak up. So this guy goes up to a Buddhist monk and starts writing to him like, "Hey, I need to talk. I can't keep it all in anymore. It's driving me crazy. Should I give up on my resolution?" The Buddhist monk reads it, smiles, and goes like, "Resolutions are meant to be broken sometimes. But if you stick with it, you'll build your inner strength. If you work on building your inner strength, it will contribute to personal growth and the betterment of society. It's up to you whether you want to make a resolution and stick to it or break it. Sometimes people give in and return to their old habits, so if you're finding it challenging, don't feel bad about going back to your routine. Just remember that if you can't handle a small resolution now, how will you manage the bigger decisions in life? Ultimately, the choice is yours." The disciple was deeply hurt by the Buddhist monk's words. He didn't say anything and just went back to his hut, where he isolated himself for 15 days. While other disciples in the ashram were starting to give up, he remained determined and hadn't spoken a word since making his resolution. The whole ashram was totally surprised when they noticed the person who used to talk all the time suddenly going quiet. But after 15 days, he approached the Buddhist monk and communicated through writing, saying, "Hey Buddhist monk, on the outside I may be silent, but inside my head, it's a whole different story. There are voices constantly whining and complaining. I just can't stop talking in my mind and asking endless questions." The monk told the disciple that even though he may be quiet on the outside, his mind will continue to chatter as long as he keeps listening to those voices. The monk suggested that he should distance himself from those distractions. After thanking the monk, the disciple leaves in the morning and heads into the forest. After many days went by and the deadline passed, the disciple still didn't come back. Everyone at the ashram was worried that maybe some wild animal had gotten to him. They tried their best to look for him, but he seemed to have vanished into thin air. The other disciples thought he must have become a snack for some hungry beasts, but the Buddhist monk had a different perspective on things. So this one time, a disciple from the ashram went up to a Buddhist monk and was all like, "Hey there, Buddhist monk, wondering what happened to our talkative buddy. Do you think animals got him?" And the monk was like, "Well, maybe he became animal food, or who knows, maybe he found what he was looking for." Then the disciple asked if talking too much is really that bad. The wise monk replied with this gem, "You know, being human means it's pretty tough to keep our mouths shut. We humans have this habit of always wanting to talk, even when it's not really necessary, or when it could get us into trouble. A lot of our problems arise from talking too much. You know, those never-ending family fights and conflicts. Yeah, they're often caused by all that pointless chit-chat we engage in. We all want to be heard, but we forget to listen to others. Instead, we get caught up in trying to prove our point and convince everyone that we're right. And guess what? That just creates more confusion and hard feelings between us. We often find ourselves trapped in a cycle of speaking without truly listening, and it's something that persists throughout our lives. Unfortunately, this habit causes a lot of stress and misunderstandings that could easily be avoided. The real tragedy is that we end up wasting our time, missing out on meaningful experiences and precious moments that could bring us joy. And for what? Nothing. It all becomes futile and goes to waste. Only a handful of people truly grasp the significance of what we've lost in this madness. Just like how people are unaware of their arrival into this world, they are equally unaware of their departure from it. The disciple asked, "So what's the solution then?" And the Buddhist monk replied, "The only way to truly observe your thoughts is by being fully present and conscious. By staying focused on the present moment and approaching your work with mindfulness, you'll witness amazing transformations in life." After receiving these answers from the monk, the disciple bowed down before him and left. So, get this, the disciple bailed out of the ashram 3 months ago, and nobody had a clue where he went. The Buddhist monks were totally bummed and didn't think they'd ever see him again. But guess what? Out of nowhere, he pops back into the ashram. And let me tell you, he was like a whole new person. Something major happened to him during his time away, because now he's all serene and chill. It's pretty amazing to witness, I gotta say. As soon as he arrived at the ashram, it was like everyone couldn't help but gather around him. His face had this calming vibe, radiating peace and tranquility. And when he started talking to his disciples, something had truly changed. It was like he became more patient and less chatty. Every word that came out of his mouth flowed smoothly and sounded so sweet. After chatting with his disciples for a bit, he headed straight towards the Buddhist monk. So this guy goes up to a Buddhist monk and touches his feet. He asks if he's still being silent and if his resolution is intact. The monk stares into the guy's eyes for a while and tells him that yes, he's still silent. No words are coming out of his mouth, so resolution is on point. But the disciple explains that even though he was physically silent while leaving the ashram, there were a ton of voices inside his head with endless questions that just wouldn't stop. So I decided to escape to the forest, hoping it would bring me some peace and quiet my racing thoughts. But instead of finding tranquility, I found that the noise inside my head grew louder. It was like an old familiar voice resurfacing. That's when it hit me. I had been so wrong in the past when I said hurtful things about my family, friends, and even Buddhist monks. At the time, I thought I was being clever and witty with my jokes and gossip. I believed that somehow made me superior. But on that day, everything changed, and I finally realized just how terribly wrong I had been with my words. For the longest time, I had all these thoughts and complaints swirling around in my head. But you know what? One day, poof, they disappeared. Now, it's not just quiet on the outside. It's silent on the inside too. I was all alone in that forest with no one to talk to, and it finally hit me. Silence is more than just a lack of noise. It's pure bliss. Despite some occasional whispers from the past, that day was filled with peace all around me. I couldn't hear anything at first, but then all of a sudden, I could hear everything crystal clear. The wind blowing, birds chirping, and water flowing. It was like I was hearing these sounds for the very first time, and it gave me such a sense of peace. So, to test this newfound tranquility, I decided to break the silence by shouting out loud, asking why everything was so quiet. But guess what? Even after my outburst, the calmness remained undisturbed. Everything stayed just as peaceful as before, both outside and inside me. Hey there, monk. So I had a chat with my buddies and also with you. On the outside, everything seems normal. I'm talking, walking, and just taking in my surroundings. But deep down inside, I feel this overwhelming sense of loneliness and silence. It's like even when I try to open up and express myself, I still can't shake off that feeling of being isolated. But here's the thing. Now it's as if a light bulb has gone off in my head. Everything seems much clearer and sounds incredibly vivid to me. The Buddhist monk was like, hey, all that inner turmoil we feel, it's because we talk too much. But if we focus on ourselves and stay calm inside, it doesn't matter what we say. A lot of the world's problems come from our fear of silence. We blabber on more than necessary and never really listen to others. We're always interrupting them to prove ourselves. It becomes our whole purpose in life, wasting all our energy on pointless chats. No wonder society is so sad when people don't listen or try to understand each other. They just don't appreciate the power of silence because it makes them feel insignificant. The truth is, all the conflicts in the world stem from our incessant chatter. That's why we should only speak when necessary, to preserve our energy. Pointless blabbering keeps us distracted and prevents us from looking within ourselves. So, if we truly want to connect with our inner selves, we need to zip it and keep quiet. It's no wonder that enlightened beings like Buddha sought solitude to escape excessive talking and listening. They were cool and composed when they were alone, making it easy for them to delve into their thoughts. Even in the midst of our busy lives, we have the ability to find solitude and stay relaxed, but it requires us to save our energy instead of wasting it on meaningless chatter. The moral of the story here is that talking for the sake of talking is just a big waste of energy. If you really want to explore your inner self, it's best to keep quiet and listen. As we wrap up this Zen journey, I'd love for you to join our awesome community and be part of something special. If this story hit you with some inspiration, show us some love by giving that like button a satisfying click. And hey, don't keep it all to yourself. Share it with your buddies and leave a comment below sharing your thoughts or even suggesting more Zen stories you'd want to hear. Oh, and for an extra dose of motivation and serenity, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. Your engagement keeps us going on this journey of wisdom and enlightenment. Thanks for walking the path with us.